Hey everybody, I am Cyborg and welcome Temp along with me, and we are going to be reviewing the entire series of the Halloween movies. We're hoping to go through all sorts of different horror series, such as Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, so on and so forth, but we thought it was fitting to start with Halloween, with the new movie coming up, so we hope to go through each movie in the series, and we will review and discuss the finer points, the lower points throughout the series. So Temp, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. Doing good today.
Good. I'd hate to catch you on a bad day.
Bad days aren't so bad either.
That doesn't...
Still,
no.
keep on trucking.
You could say they're totally bad.
Oh.
Totally. 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 All right, so we're going to jump into this. Starting off the bat, we are going to be kind of discussing just our overall thoughts of, you know, our history with the franchise. We're not going to go and spoil all the other movies or anything like that. Obviously, their discussions will happen in later episodes. But just right off the bat, we're going to kind of cover, you know, when we were first introduced to Halloween, when we first saw it, what our memories were of it, that type of stuff. So just right off the bat, why don't you start? Let me know, you know, where were you when you first saw it? What are your memories of this franchise or of the first movie specifically?
I saw it on a bootleg VHS probably when I was like 5 or 6 years old. My mother was famous for just having the VCR ready and just like recording shit off HBO,
Right.
just whenever it was on. And so she had this in like a huge catalog of VHSs, and I didn't know what I didn't. I mean, everyone knows Friday the 13th, even when they're very, very, very young. Everyone knows the hockey mask. Everyone knows, you know, the cabins, the forest. I feel like Halloween is a little more. It's not as visually apparent, I think, in society. It's not like there's nothing like the hockey mask, even though there is a mask in Halloween. So I didn't stumble into Halloween till a little later after I started watching horror movies, and I only knew it by name. So I had friends who had seen it. Eventually, we get old enough, you find other horror movie fans, and it was a lot of word of mouth. And God, this had to have been 1992, maybe 93. This was a very long time ago, and I saw it, and I think the intro just really struck me. And I think that's kind of the beauty of Halloween. That intro and that music kind of sucks you in, and that's when I started to get exposed to it as a franchise. I still really like it today. Even when it's not good, it's still pretty good because the character is so. It's hard to talk about Halloween without talking about Friday the 13th. It's so difficult. It's definitely a Coke and Pepsi situation, but yeah, it's such an iconic part of horror. And it's just, even if you don't like one of the sequels, it's just, I think a lot of people just enjoy spending time with Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees is much the same way. So that's kind of where I started. At least where I ended is a different story, but that's where I started.
It's interesting that you mentioned the characters' names, Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees. To me, that is my beginning memories of the franchise of Halloween specifically is the name Michael Myers. Like, when I think back to when I first heard about the series or my first exposure to the series, it was just kids, you know, at school, like in grade school or whatever it was, probably like first or second grade for me, where somebody was mentioning how scary Michael Myers was. Like, I heard the name before I ever saw the movie. To me, it is just like I can still hear it in my brain, like I was in the lunchroom or something, and it's just a kid mentioning the name Michael Myers. Like, it's crazy how that's stuck with me throughout all these years of just remembering that little detail. But yeah, I don't remember the character or the movies or anything like that coming first. I first remember just hearing somebody mention his name. It's almost like a legend, like a like a fairy tale or a ghost story. Like, you always hear the killer's name. It was, you know, this guy with a hook or something like that. Like, it's crazy that that's where it was for me. And I you have a few years, you're a few years older than me, so for me, I was probably a lot younger when I first came across that. So it's just interesting to me. So it was probably like mid 90s for me when I first recall hearing that name. And then my first exposure to actually seeing the film, it's funny that you mentioned all the VHSs and stuff like that. That's not how I witnessed it first, but we had the same thing, except for I think what we had, and this is definitely illegal, that we had like 2 VCRs, and you could just rent a movie, put one in one VCR, and you could have it connected to another VCR and just record it
Oh no,
to another VHS. It's crazy how we had a whole big old Tupperware, like one of those big bins, like plastic bins filled with VHSs with like 2 or 3 movies on each VHS. So that's kind of...
I have no remorse. I'd do it again.
Yeah. So that's what we had. So it's funny that we had that similar thing going on. I'm sure a lot of people did, ignoring that FBI warning at the beginning. Just don't record that part, and I think you're good. I think that's how that works. But anyway, so my actual memory of watching the films, I feel like I was exposed to Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street before I was ever exposed to Halloween. I mean, I grew up watching horror movies when I was really young, so it wasn't like it was super late in life, but I feel like Halloween was more middle school for me, which is odd because, like I said, Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street came before that. I specifically remember Jason and Freddy and those movies, seeing those when I was really, really young compared to Halloween, which, like I said, I think I was more in middle school, and I caught them on television. It wasn't like on a VHS or renting it or anything like that. I had one older brother that was a horror fan. My dad's not a horror fan. One of my other older brothers is not a horror fan, so we didn't have a whole lot of those movies just sitting around in our house. It was usually me catching them on TV, like on, during the Halloween season. AMC would always, and they still do, always show those movies on repeat. So for me, that's when I started. I believe that's the first time I saw Halloween, along with a lot of the sequels and Friday the 13th and so on and so forth. The only one I can recall, like, actually renting or seeing rented was, I think, like Jason Goes to Hell or something. All the other ones I saw on TV for the first time. So that's my first exposure to the series. And it's kind of interesting that it came after the others that kind of copied it in a way or took inspiration from it. So it's kind of funny how that worked out. But that was my first exposure to the series. So yeah, I was much more familiar with Jason and Freddy than I was Michael Myers, even though I heard his name. I heard his name. But yes. So yeah.
Well, that makes sense too, because when I first saw Halloween, the series had kind of fizzled with 5. I think 5 came out in '89. I'm trying to get my notes up. Right. And when it fizzled, Friday the 13th was still really going strong. So it had a very dominant presence on network television or cable network television. Halloween is kind of dormant. It wasn't really till 6. I want to say 6 was 90. Let me get my notes up. 95. Yeah, 6 was 95, and that kind of brought Michael back into the public consciousness again.
Right.
But before that, the franchise was very much asleep while Jason was still kind of trucking. He was still going forward.
Yeah.
So I think that makes sense. I think our experiences, were part of that timeline in a way.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that because, like, it's in comparison, and obviously we'll get to those other series more in depth as we go, along with this series. But series, it's no secret that it started off really, really burning hot, and then it just pretty much went down and down and down for the most part. You have little peaks and valleys along the way, but the Friday the 13th was a little different. If anything, it got kind of better and better for a little bit, and then you would still have your valleys and your drop-offs for sure, especially towards the end. But there was a lot of time where it'd go more up in the up direction. And same with Nightmare on Elm Street for a bit, obviously about halfway through started going down in the perception of critics, and, well, critics always hated those movies in general, but in the fans' eyes. But Halloween it started off so bright, and when you start off that bright, it's hard to keep going up from there. It's pretty much only going to go down. But we'll get into all that. And I do want to mention right off the bat, obviously, we haven't started talking yet, but we are going to go into full spoilers with this review. So, warning, if you have not seen this movie, what are you doing? It's 40 years old.
Yeah.
Like, you got to get to it. If you clicked on the video, I would assume that you are a fan of these types of movies, horror movies, etc. So, you got to go watch this movie, and we're gonna get into the reasons why you got to see this movie. But yeah, so let's start getting into it. Once again, guys, this entire series review will have spoilers from all the movies, so yeah, do not listen any further. Go watch the movie if you've not seen it yet, and then come back and listen to this. With that said, let's jump into the movie. Where do you want to start here? Let's just start at the beginning. Like, so the movie opens up right off the bat, and I just want to point this out. I just love the opening credits to this movie. Like, I feel like it sets the tone so well. 'Cause, I mean, that's what you're doing, right? With an opening credits or an opening scene of a movie, the whole idea is to set the tone for the movie. Let the audience know what they're getting into, or give them that kind of, establish a mood. And having just the stark black with the orange text, which a lot of people think, Halloween, orange, purple. I mean, there's certain colors that are associated with Halloween, and orange is, I think, the most associated with Halloween. So, with that being said, you have the stark black background, orange text, and then the jack-o'-lantern that's slowly getting closer to the screen as the music plays. The iconic Halloween theme that just very slow and ominous. It has two different kind of variations on the theme that are very different. The one more fast-paced, and the one that's a little bit slow and plodding.
Yeah, I feel like this is very much a Carpenter thing. Carpenter's philosophy on opening credits is that the opening credits should set up the movie, but I think they should also be good in of themselves, per Carpenter. I can just watch the credits and really enjoy that. I can just YouTube the opening credits for Halloween and just really enjoy it. Well, I feel like the modern day function of credits is to either, highlight the cast and the billing, and then just kind of to set the tone for the rest of the film, and that's great and all. But it would be great if modern day opening credits had intrinsic artistic value, which this did, and that's why people still enjoy watching it. People
Absolutely.
look forward to the opening credits. What other movie do you look forward to the opening credits? Like,
I can only think of one, and that's The Dark Knight, and that's because it has no opening credits.
Well, I mean, that attitude is very much a product of the modern era. I mean, they did that to us. They programmed us that way.
There is at least one other Halloween movie that I really love the opening credits, and I will reveal that one when we get to it. But there is one other one, at least, that I really, really love, just for the tone and the atmosphere that it has. So I'll reveal that when we get to that particular film in the series. But I agree completely. And yeah, it's just fantastic. It is a work of art. The credits, I mean, it's such a simple thing to do or mess up or whatever, but it's just Carpenter does it so well here. I mean, he is a master at his craft, and this is just a prime example.
He tells stories with music, and it's not just this one either. He did it with Escape from New York as well. The first 2 minutes of Escape from New York is just the credits, but the music is a build-up. It not only is the song really good, but it's very much the atmosphere of the movie compressed into a 2-minute track. He loves storytelling, and he does it. Well, I mean, we'll get to this later, but he does it with the visuals too. You can watch Halloween 1 on mute and get almost the same experience because the visuals are that powerful, and they communicate so much. So yeah, it's a Carpenter thing. It's so awesome.
It's so interesting that you say that, because I believe this is the Halloween. Yeah, it was the first one where he showed this. The original cut did not have the score on it, and it was before he scored it. And they actually, I think it was, I don't know if it was publicly shown and it got bad reviews, as a test audience or whatever, or if it was critics. But I remember people really did not like it and didn't think it was scary at all. Yet they really, just adding the score completely changed everyone's opinion. So I just think that's interesting that you say that, just the visual. I happen to agree with you. I think the score adds a ton. Not to discredit the score. I think this is one of my favorite scores of all time in general for a movie. And and it repeats the same themes throughout. So I mean, it's such a simple score, but it's so expertly placed at, in the right spots throughout the film. Um, yeah, but that is an interesting tidbit. I remember watching several documentaries over the years, and like I said, I think it was I don't I don't know if it was for like a test audience or what, but I just remember it getting pretty bad reviews before the score was attached to it.
I can see it because the score gives a lot of the cues. The score kind of, this is also a very Carpenter thing. It kind of red light, green lights Michael's presence when he's not on screen. So it tells you when Michael is there. So if you do watch the movie on mute and you haven't seen it before, or maybe you have seen it, or maybe you have seen it before, but it's again, it's storytelling through music. So you do miss out on a little bit without the music, but to me, in my opinion, I think that's almost better because I like not knowing if he's there or not. I like the suspense. The camera also holds on a lot of things. The camera will just kind of lock on to like a bush or like or a window. Then that's a big part of the movie.
Right.
So I could see both. I can see why people wouldn't like it, especially in the '70s when people had no idea what to expect. But I think this modern slasher crowd, I think, could probably kind of play their way through it without the sound. Not to say I'm recommending this by any means. If you haven't seen Halloween, please don't turn the sound off. But other than that, it's just amazing. It shows the competency of the movie.
I mean, since we're talking about the score and we're talking about the sound effects, we might as well go into more detail about certain aspects of the movie and certain scenes in the movie where it played a huge part, just the sound. And one of them was later in the movie where I'm trying to remember his name. I think it's Paul or no, it's Bob. Bob is the one that goes to get the beers for Linda, and as he's going down to get them, he notices the door slams shut or whatever. So he goes to investigate, and he thinks it's somebody else messing with him, like Linda or something, playing a prank on him. And then you don't see Michael anywhere, but you can hear his breathing, which is established throughout the film. Every time he's near, like usually he's on screen when it happens. He's standing in the foreground, and you just hear the heavy breathing. But in this particular scene, you don't know where he's at, but you can hear the breathing. Like that's your tip off that he is near, so you know he's coming. To me, that's fantastic. That's just expertly done. Like you do not get that sort of subtlety in like horror movies, especially these days. Definitely not slashers. It's just, I feel like they oftentimes in today's movies, they beat you over the head with everything. They use jump scares and they use those kind of cheap tactics, whereas something like this is so subtle, and that's just littered throughout this movie. All these subtle little nuances between visuals and audio cues, for sure.
And there's no archetype yet for the slasher. No one really knew what to expect from Michael. So I imagine going back to the 1970s when this movie premiered, that's not a cliche yet. None of these things are cliches yet. So they have an extreme punch to them. And I mean, going with the sound, I think Jamie Lee Curtis, I think, was a big selling point for this movie too. The original Scream Queen, right?
Right.
So I feel like one thing that the older slashers, even older Friday 13th, does is, since there's no real camp factor, at least not yet. At least if there is, it's not intentional yet.
I see what you did there.
Those screams are real. Like when they get stabbed and they yell, you feel that. It's not exhibition yet. Not till well into the 80s. So you hear those screams, it's like, oh god, and we'll get into all the horrible things that happen to Nancy in the movie later. But yeah,
they all have a camp factor because they take place at a campground, though.
Oh yeah, no, it's true. Yeah, there's a little. There's cabins. There are counselors in very, very short shorts.
Quite literally, a camp factor. Yes, indeed. Totally. So continuing on with the sound, though, throughout the film, I mean, like I said, you hear the same kind of beats reused throughout the entire film. I don't know how many exactly. It's like the same 2 or 3, 4 kind of tunes or whatever going throughout the film, and they just keep reusing them over and over, but it just is so perfect. And in that breathing is once again reused as a way to tell you that Michael is around when towards the end of the movie, during the big climax where Laurie's trying to run away from Michael, once again, she doesn't know where he's at. She closed the door, she locked it, but then all of a sudden you hear the breathing. You hear the heavy breathing once again, and then Laurie notices, oh, the window's open or the side door's open or whatever, so she knows, oh, he's probably in here, and she starts to hear the breathing, so she starts, looking all over the place, and she grabs the knitting needle, and that's, when Michael pops out. So once again, I just think the audio, the score, everything just adds so much to the package. I agree that it's so well shot, and we'll get into some of those great shots, but the score to me, it's just, it stands the test of time, much like the rest of this film. It really does stand up, and the Halloween theme is easily my favorite theme of any horror franchise. And there's some good ones out there, but the Halloween theme is like pretty much in a league of its own to me personally.
God, that's tough. I feel like I agree because I have to, because it's the only one that's been completed and fleshed out more than any other. But man, Nightmare on Elm Street's up there. Nightmare
It's
on Elm
good.
Really close.
Yeah, I would agree. Even the Exorcist theme is really, really good. But yeah, man, it's just,
see, the problem
good.
is I don't know if Nightmare on Elm Street, like I don't know if it's longer than 15 seconds. I only know that chord.
Yeah, no, that do. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah,
I agree wholeheartedly. Maybe that'll be a list we do someday, because that's a good one, actually.
Puppet Master theme is really good, but I think it's derivative from an actual song, so I don't know if it counts. But
yeah, Poltergeist. There's a few good ones out there. Then you got like Friday the 13th. Yeah, you got some good ones in there. But so moving on from the score, because that was covered pretty well. Let's talk about some of the characters. You want to dive into characters here?
Yeah, you gotta start with Loomis. Yeah,
there's so much to chew on character-wise. Like, there's at least 3 or 4 that are worth a discussion here. But yeah, let's start. If you want to start with the cream of the crop, let's start with Loomis. What are your thoughts on Donald Pleasance as Dr. Loomis?
They set him up really quick that this guy's a little damaged. God, it's gonna be a while before we get to the cinematography, but it's hard not to talk about certain things we're discussing in this movie. But the movie begins in the car, and there's the rain, and all the windows are just black, and you can't see anything outside of the 2 characters, just the windshield, and they're just talking about Michael, and the guy's obsessed. He's very clearly obsessed, for better or worse. I'd say better and worse, because I think there's things I like about Loomis and there's things I don't like about Loomis. But look, I guess starting positive, he's so much fun. When he's on screen, he looks like he's about to snap. Like, he is so electrical and tense, and he's got like you see a lot in Carpenter movies again. He has like a signature like frustration. A lot of actors are very good at being charismatically frustrated. Kurt Russell, I think, is the king of this. Going back to The Thing, Tom Hanks, another one, just really entertaining when he's frustrated. Loomis is like that. Loomis is just pissed off the whole movie because no one is listening to him, and that's not only is that very relatable, but that has real consequences later. So this movie kind of ends with a giant bang when Loomis and Nancy's storylines kind of merge together. But he's so electrical on screen, and he's very reactive to everything.
Did you just say Loomis and Nancy?
Loomis and Nancy. Right? Loomis or
you got Nightmare on the Brain.
Oh, is her name not Nancy?
Nancy is the main
Nightmare on Elm Street.
hero.
It was also Halloween.
No, Laurie Strode.
Laurie, son of a bitch. Okay, I know what happened. Yeah, there's another character named Nancy in the movie. I think that's her friend, but I'm going to find out for sure.
No, it's
to make sure I'm not completely stupid.
It's Laurie, Linda, and Annie, not Nancy.
Son of a
I just think when we were talking about the scores of the other films, you're thinking
that's
Nancy.
Part of it, but I think what messed me up earlier is when I was taking notes, Annie Brackett is played by Nancy Kyes, and that screwed me up.
Nancy, Annie. You can.
Yeah. Laurie, Jamie Lee Curtis and Loomis. I thought I said Loomis too. I was like, well, that's not Loomis. Right. Yeah.
No, Loomis. Sam Loomis is like a nod to another character from a old horror movie before that, I believe. I can't remember. Should have looked into that, but I do remember on a lot of documentaries that I watched that it's an homage to a different character.
And every time he's on screen, it's usually with a different person, whether it's the police officer.
Psycho. It's from Psycho.
Oh, that makes sense. I mean, this movie blew up into a slasher genre, and debatably, Psycho should have done the same thing, but it wasn't really possible because of just how violent and controversial Psycho was. So it couldn't really, take off as a genre like it could in the '70s. So it's not really a surprise it took this long for slashers to become a thing. I just don't think anyone had the idea until someone approached Carpenter about it. So, yeah, but you look at Loomis, and he acts a little differently depending on who's on screen, and usually he talks to I think like 6 or 7 people throughout the movie. It's the psych ward nurse, I guess, is who he's driving with, and then after that, it's the
Sheriff Brackett, the grave digger, Laurie, of course.
The kids. Yeah, remember when the kids are screwing with the house?
Yeah,
it always makes me laugh too, because what happens is he does that fake horror voice, like, get your ass out of there.
Lonnie, get your ass out of there.
And after they all run off, he has that smile.
Oh, I know.
I still got it.
I love it. That's like the most pleasure he takes in the entire film. Like, I don't know why he takes such pleasure in scaring them. And then he gets spooked right when Sheriff Brackett, spooks him, immediately after. But yeah, that just brief moment where he's his satisfaction of scaring those kids away was just perfect.
It's great. I love it.
Well, speaking, continuing on with Dr. Loomis, his acting's phenomenal here. I feel like had they not nailed that actor, and I believe he was in a James Bond film. I forget. I think he was Goldfinger or something like that. I gotta remember what the hell.
He's top billed. Yeah, he's the first name in the credits.
He's the star of the film. Obviously Jamie Lee is the one that people probably associate most with the films, but yeah, Donald Pleasance. Now I gotta look up which James Bond character he plays. Ernst Stavro Blofeld. Blah, 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 blah. Either way, he was a James Bond villain, and that's where he was a pretty famous British actor, and yeah, they were managed to get him, and that's pretty awesome, because I feel like the series, without him as Dr. Loomis, I don't even believe he was their first choice, but without him in that role, I feel like it wouldn't be the same. He gave credibility, to a cast that was pretty, all unknowns at that time. So, yeah, I don't know. Every scene he's in, to me, is just great. His acting is phenomenal. There's one point in the car when they're going up to to get Michael or whatever to transfer him, and when he realizes everything that's going on, when all the inmates are out and all that, his eyes if you watch his eyes, he just kind of looks down. He does such subtle acting. It's perfect. His facial expressions, the way he moves his eyes, I love it.
He's always one step ahead. And
yes.
And there really is no exposition without him. Without Loomis in this movie, you don't know anything about Michael. He is the vehicle that kind of, debatably, you still don't really know a whole lot about Michael, even with Loomis. Because Loomis, whenever they talk to him, he's always very mystic about Michael Myers. He's just evil, and we can talk later about just interpretations of what he means by that.
Right.
But you take him out, it's the Laurie show. And then a guy in a mask. There's not a lot else in the movie without Loomis. You need him to kind of tie everything into a bow.
No, I agree. He's essentially the Rock of not Dwayne Johnson, but the foundation of this film, and in a lot of ways, the series in general. I feel like he is that thread throughout all of the films that really you need. So even more so than Laurie in a lot of ways. He's that kind of... He's the glue that holds it all together in a lot of ways. You obviously got to have Michael in there. You can't just have Dr. Loomis in there, but yeah, you know what I mean? It's good.
Laura, especially Jamie Lee Curtis. Jamie Lee Curtis is not irreplaceable. A lot of really talented women could have played that role. I don't know if I'm convinced about Loomis. I don't know if that's the case with Dr. Loomis.
Right. Agreed. Agreed. So moving past Dr. Loomis, and you said there was some low points or negatives, cons.
I mean, it's not 100% clear if if Loomis is a real. I mean, it's not like it's not a criticism of the character. It's more of an interpretation of the character. Like I said, he's our exposition machine. So the literary theory here is how reliable is Loomis really as a vehicle into what Michael Myers is, as sort of someone to take us down that tour
Right.
of who this character is, because as a clinical psychologist, if you study a kid for 8 years, it's not super scientific to be like, oh, this kid has a case of the evil. Like, that's not really grounded very well in the movie. And I think that's by design. I don't think they wanted to ground that. I think Michael Myers, first and foremost, is supposed to be a phenomenon. He's not really meant to be understood. People have been arguing about, like, was he supposed to be supernatural? Is he better supernatural, or is he better as mentally ill? Which side? And the truth is, there is no answer in the first movie. It's never explained. What I mean, you can go by Loomis's statements and interpret that as he's a sociopath. He doesn't have a conscience.
Right.
But that's not grounded in the movie. He says that he didn't have a soul, but again, to interpret that as a sociopath, well, he gets shot like a million times and then falls off a balcony and then light jogs away. His movement is not natural.
By a million times, I think you mean 6 times.
Oh, and I love the beginning of Halloween 2 so much. The rest of it we'll speak about later, but God, I love that intro.
6 times.
So yeah, just people argue about it like it was settled in Halloween 1 and they changed it later, but even in Halloween 1, they were very non-committal. Loomis is really all we have to explain why Michael Myers is the way he is, but he's very vague. And it's very unclear if he's a reliable source. For all we know, Loomis could be not terribly healthy in the head himself, but we know his intent is good. But we also know he's obsessed, which that could lead to its own form of horror. He's a tortured man. So can we rely on him as sort of like a narrator for who Michael Myers is? Even if we trust Loomis, it doesn't explain everything. It doesn't explain how Michael Myers can drive a car after being in a hospital for X amount of years.
Don't worry.
I mean, Loomis says maybe someone taught him,
We'll get the answer of that later. Not this episode, but they do address that at one point in the series. On how we'll get to that way later, but there is an explanation of how he learned to drive. I think it's a throwaway line, but I don't want to spoil it.
That's even better.
I don't want to spoil it. But I just the dialogue of Loomis in here. There's 2 main quotes in here, and I have them pulled up right here. There's I met him 15 years ago. I was told there was nothing left. Yada yada yada. The blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up because I realized that what was living behind those boys' eyes was purely and simply evil. There's that line, which is the way he there's a reason why I'm not going to try and deliver it like he does, because he's just so good. He just nails it. That's a home run.
You buy it, you believe it.
He says it with conviction. He does not come across as a character that is acting. And there's a couple characters in this movie that I'm like, those characters are really just trying to act. He is not. He is a guy that is method. He just nails these just so perfectly. And then the other one is I watched him for 15 years sitting in a room, staring at a wall, not seeing the wall, looking past the wall, looking at this night, inhumanly patient, waiting for some secret, silent alarm to trigger him off. Death has come to your little town, Sheriff. Now you can either ignore it or you can help me to stop it. It's just so good. The writing for that character is just so good. And it's a mix between just the writing being good and just the way he delivers that line. I don't know. Those stick out to me as so memorable to me. It's just amazing. So I gotta love his character. He's one of my favorite characters in horror. And I agree with you. It's not all perfect and it's not all, great with him, but I think that's kind of like even as the series progresses, like Loomis is just I don't know, something special
I
about
think
that guy.
he's kind of broken. It's not. I really think they were trying to convey a good character, but I think after studying Michael Myers, I think that took its toll.
Yeah.
So I think he's doing the best he can, and I think the audience believes him when he says, "No matter what happens, we gotta stop Michael. Michael's gonna
Right.
destroy it. He's gonna wreak havoc." The audience trusts when everyone is going against Loomis. The audience will always side with Loomis because they know he's right. But I just it just all kind of factors into the mystery of Michael and just how much they don't tell you about him and just how they use Loomis to kind of communicate what we do know and whether that's right or wrong. And that's why it was so hard to make a sequel to this movie in the first place.
Right.
Because what do you do with that mystery? Because you can only flesh it out, or you can only kind of flip it, flip that underwear inside out for another day and kind of keep the mystery going. But I don't think either method works because I don't think I don't think the groundwork was ever there to do that. So, but Loomis is the lens. We're going to get more into lenses
Well,
later.
even
There's a lot of ways to see this movie.
I mean, you're not wrong. Even the writers John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, they didn't know what the hell to do in the sequel either. They didn't even want to make a sequel. They were approached about a sequel, and I believe John Carpenter said he wrote he wrote Halloween 2 when he was like smashed out of his mind because while he was writing it. So it's like he was under the pressure because he didn't even know. It's not like he had this amazing, fantastic idea. This was never set up to be a sequel, even though it ends on that kind of cliffhanger. It wasn't done purposely to set up a sequel. It was done to establish a certain mood and theme leaving the theater that we'll get to. But yeah, it's funny that you say that.
Yeah, it's oh man, we got to talk about the ending later. But it's historically interesting. That's kind of why I'm looking forward to reviewing all these movies is to see how many people try to work this character into something else. And because if you make him anything other than a mystery, you're not in Halloween 1 territory anymore. You're somewhere else. Um, so I don't know. I mean, that's pretty much all I have about Loomis. Oh, who did you want to?
Well, let's tackle before we get into like Laurie and Michael himself. Let's kind of tackle
Yeah.
some of the minor characters, the supporting cast, if you will. Let's go with Annie. What are your thoughts on Annie?
I mean, she became sort of like the template for a lot of characters, maybe hundreds of characters in the 80s and
Yeah.
90s. Um, but I think the difference is Annie does actually have some likable
Oh,
qualities.
she does.
You buy into her friendship with Laurie, and I mean, just really just how she reacts to her sister as well. Like it's genuine. She's not like she's not part of that trope where you make a character purposely unlikable so the audience can cheer against them when they're in
Right.
trouble.
Which is
No, you
what
don't want her to die.
95% of horror movies do these days is they know you're rooting for the killer at this point, like because they're such, charismatic characters for whatever reason. So now
Yeah.
it's like they purposely make the characters obnoxious as possible that you're rooting for them to finally die. I don't think that was the case at this point, especially not with Annie. I agree with you wholeheartedly that she was set up. She's the girl next door in a lot of ways. She is that likable person that, if there was any character beyond Laurie that you wanted to see make it out, you kind of, I felt bad to see Annie go because she didn't really do anything to annoy me or frustrate me or piss me off. She was a little klutzy with trying to get out of the damn window, but other than that, she was likable. I agree wholeheartedly, and yeah, and then I thought there were some odd parts in there. There's little inconsistencies throughout the film that I did notice and take note of. Obviously, it's not a perfect film by any means. Like she goes, and I don't know if this was intentional or not, but when Annie goes to get in the car to leave, it's locked. And then she goes to grab her keys, comes all the way back around, and then you'll notice she doesn't use the keys to actually get in. Like the door's just unlocked at that point. And it's not like a bad cut or anything. Like she literally goes up, you see the view of the door, and then she'll just unlatch it and she's good. Like she didn't actually have to unlock it. So that was kind of interesting. So I don't know if that was purposeful because at that point we know Michael's in the car because the expertly done, fog on the condensation all over the windows that Annie notices before, Michael pops out. So I don't know if it was unlocked by Michael or how do you do that? You know, like something like that. Or
Yeah.
maybe he was already inside to begin with, locked it, and then unlocked it when she walked away. But why does he need to do that? Because she would have unlocked it. You know, it's one of those things that could have been just a little thing that didn't matter. But I agree wholeheartedly that she is a likable character. She doesn't do anything annoying. But let's transition to somebody that does do some things that are annoying, and that's Linda,
Yeah.
the other friend in this film. Linda, who totally. Oh my gosh, you should have counted the totallys. I don't know if you noticed this, but she said totally about 30 times. Like, I'm not even kidding. She even says it immediately after sex. She's like, fantastic, totally. Like, she said, like, now that you know, I don't know if you realized it, but now that you know it's there, if you watch it again, she says totally about 10 times in the first 2 minutes that she's in the film.
I didn't notice it, but to tell you the truth, like that character is so like grating to begin with that I think partially I just zoned her out.
See anything you like? Like,
Man.
It's just, I just think
Another
it's
trope that lived on for decades. So
yes. But yeah, no, she wasn't like bad. I mean, we're not talking like today's standards where it's just a straight up horrible stereotype bad, but yeah, she was a bit grating and annoying in a way that Annie was not. So she definitely walked that line of, okay, you know, she's the filler in this movie where she's just kind of she's the other friend, you know? Like Annie's the
yeah.
friend, like the best friend almost. Like she gets more, you know, higher quality stuff. She looks a little bit better, not like physically. I'm just meaning in general. She just looks like the overall better person,
Put
friend.
together, yeah.
Yeah. Whereas Linda is the extra that's just there to screw and, you know, be dead. So, and be a little annoying with her, uh, her lines. I think it was a female that wrote her line, or the female's lines in here too. So that was kind
That's
of
true.
interesting.
Deborah Hill, I think, did all the female dialogue.
Yeah.
I think.
Totally. Totally did that. Totally.
Watch her talk like that in interviews and shit.
Yeah, it's like it explains everything. Totally. But yeah, there's not really much to say about Linda, other than, you know, when she was dying on the phone, all she had to do is like, I'm dying, somebody is murdering me. Like as she's being choked, is like, but yeah,
it was a little Austin Powers. It was a little bit. It was just kind of.
That reminds me, I do have one complaint about Annie, who just calls somebody and then just eats for the first like minute, and to the point where Laurie was like, "Did you just call me? Like, so I didn't hear anything." And she's like, "Oh yeah, I was just chewing." Like, who does that? It's like I call you and then I'm just, when you answer, I'm just chewing for like 30 seconds. I don't know. It's just odd. But there's some odd scenes in here for sure, and we're about to get to one that was really odd. But yeah, do you have anything more to say about Linda?
I mean, I guess two things about Linda. One is that I feel like both Annie and Linda play into the same theme of these people don't realize they're in an unsafe situation.
They don't realize they're in a horror movie.
Vulnerable. And what's up?
I know I was saying they don't realize they're in a horror movie.
No, not at all. Not even close. And that's what makes it kind of a better horror film is just I mean, the whole point of Michael Myers is that someone could invade your home anytime. Doesn't matter if you're a babysitter or a lawyer. It doesn't matter. Like no one's truly safe. These are things that could happen. It just the only thing that protects you is statistics, and that's where Linda and Annie kind of really play their role. I think I don't want to say one mistake, but one thing people forget about this movie is, in theory, Michael Myers could have killed a lot more, but these happen to be the ones we saw.
Right.
There could have been a lot more murders that just didn't make it on screen. It's based on the timeline of the evening. It's not clear how much time he had to do that and what happened in the other houses, but I mean, this all could have been part of a pattern that we just weren't privy to. So I think that's another part where Linda really becomes important. This could have been happening throughout, like, you know, multiple houses throughout that same neighborhood. So I don't know. It's kind of like a sample work of what happened, of what could have happened elsewhere in the movie,
Right.
Linda is just kind of like a glimpse of that.
Yeah. Man, totally.
Poor Linda. Totally.
Totally. All right, well, let's pivot to Linda's boyfriend, Bob. So he's the one that goes and gets the beers, gets pinned up against the door by Michael that we talked about earlier. Um, yeah, he's just odd. Like, did you notice this? I don't know if you picked up on this dialogue. So I'm trying to find it in my notes here. Okay, so here we go. So when Bob and Linda are, they're first in the van, basically before they go into Annie's house. So Annie's, taking, what the hell is her name? Annie's taking Lindsay. Lindsay's the little girl. He's taking her over to, to with Laurie and Tommy Doyle. And so she takes her over there. Annie then gets killed. So Annie's no longer there. Linda and Bob were tipped off that basically the house is free to them now because Lindsay was taken elsewhere. Well, anyways, they're in the van and he says, so they're talking about screwing around, right? So then he goes, okay, first I rip your clothes off, referring to Linda. Then you rip my clothes off. Then we rip Lindsay's clothes off.
I remember that line, but at that time, because that was before like Annie shouts Lindsay like 100 times while she's in the kitchen. It didn't occur to me that Lindsay was the little sister.
What the fuck?
Yeah, no, I agree. Now it's fucked. It's fucked up now.
I know it's been 40 years, but I think Disney should fire that actor.
Yeah, no, it's too late. No, it's delete.
I don't care if he was joking. Topical. But no, I just like I just like that came out of nowhere. And especially if that was written by a female, like what? Why was that? Not that it would have. It doesn't make it worse one way or the other, but it's just like it's just one of those lines that it's not really disgusting. It's just one of those like why though? Like it doesn't even fit. And I would assume he's joking, even though it's just so left field that it doesn't really feel like joking. It just feels like what the fuck? Like did that really just happen? Did he really say that?
Maybe Lindsay was older in the script. That happens a lot, even from novels to movies. Like ages change a lot. Like Jurassic Park, those kids are way younger, or not younger. They reverse the ages of the boy and the girl in Jurassic Park from the novel to the movie. So I'm wondering if that's part of it. I'm also wondering if it was just part of the. I mean, in some ways, the movie, at least back then, was treated as an exploitation film.
Sure.
Because I mean, famously, the first kill of the movie is Michael Myers' sister. And what is she doing? She's, I think, applying her makeup at a vanity mirror.
Naked, yeah.
With her tits out, with the door open.
Yeah.
At the stairs. Like, it's not even, like, around a hallway. It's, like, the first door on the stairs. Like, I just don't... So, and I know it was a 70s tactic. It's what they did was they put nudity in one scene or one or two scenes in the movie. Then it just empowers the word of mouth. People leave the movie and they tell all their adolescent, high school, college friends, hey, there's tits in this movie.
Sure,
there was no Google image search back then.
Right.
So it was a tactic. So the producers, I think, they knew they were making an over-the-top violent movie.
Even though it's not really that violent. But I mean, at the time, I could see it as violent. But yeah, I mean, that's a whole nother discussion on its own. But I see where you're coming from. And I mean, like I said, it could have just been a passing joke that maybe back then it wasn't such a heated, controversial, commonly brought up topic. Maybe back then it wasn't like this thing that commonly happened. So it was just a joke. My other thought is, which I think might even be as likely as, that the character's ages changed at some point, is maybe instead of Lindsay, maybe it was supposed to be Annie, and maybe they just got it wrong. I mean, this was
I was thinking that too. I was thinking Laurie, actually. I thought you meant to say Laurie instead of Lindsay, and it just stuck. Like, they didn't say cut.
Well, I meant, like, because Annie was the one watching Lindsay originally, and the whole joke was, that basically Annie's going to distract Lindsay so that the other two can sneak upstairs and do what they want to do.
Yeah.
And maybe they, he was trying to, angle for the threesome with Annie involved, and that's where she was like, stop it or whatever. I don't know. These are just theories. It really doesn't matter, but it was just such an odd left field line. Like, what the hell? Dude.
There's a whole Reddit topic just about this line.
I believe it. They're probably like I'm sure it's been addressed like with the actual actors or writers at some point, and they've probably, explained what happened, if it was a mistake or if it was a joke that was just, obviously now even more today that it's not gonna age very well, as they say. But yeah, I'm sure it was either a joke or a mistake. I don't think they were actually taking that serious in any way,
no.
shape, or form. But it's just one of those I find fascinating. Like, why was that a thing? Like, I don't know. It didn't play into anything in the film.
I mean, maybe theory number 3 is that they wanted to show Bob was more of a sleaze, but they didn't have a lot of time with him on camera. So it's like, we got to make this quick. We got to show this guy's an asshole really fast.
Let's make it count.
So they immediately went the pedophile route. Immediately went straight to pedophile. There was no time to make him out to be a douchebag.
Yeah, I'm sure.
In a way, yeah.
No, go ahead. It's all in the delivery too. It's clearly that he's joking, but yeah, if he was like legitimately like, "Hey, about that Lindsay," like, I don't know, like, it's just disturbing.
It was so hard to do it later though, because later on when he's being a dick to Linda, it doesn't come off as, "Oh, this guy's a dick." It comes off as he just doesn't like being around Linda. So it's hard to. He doesn't. He looks like someone who like just cannot stand being around this person, but he wants to get laid. So, which is all, it's its own form of, that's its own form of not great. That's bad in it itself, but it's a different kind of bad. I think they wanted to show this guy's a sleaze, he's a douchebag, and they had 2 chances. So this is it.
All right. Well, enough about Bob.
Enough about Bob.
Enough about Bob.
What about Bob?
What about Bob? Yes. So that gets kind of the main supporting cast, and obviously you got the kids. Do you really have much to say about the kids? I don't really.
For the most part, believe it or not, both kids are for the most part very authentic and sincere and do a good job. Both kids also get on my nerves in 2 very specific scenes. One is when Laurie is running towards the door, screaming bloody fucking murder. Open the door, please, hurry. Crying, screaming.
Tommy acts all tired. He's just like bothered.
His eyes like slowly walking down. It's like, hey, what's up, man?
Yeah, I guess.
God, I'm like, what is wrong with you? Like, shrieks of death.
It's funny because Tommy was the one freaking out before, about seeing Michael in the distance, and he's, the boogeyman's out there, and Laurie kind of plays it off like, no, you're being ridiculous. He's not out there. I don't see anything. And now the roles are reversed, and he's just like, huh? Yeah, I guess, sure.
Yeah, it didn't take a long time for him to fall asleep either. Like he was like traumatized, like not even before. And he's like sleeping like a bear in the fucking winter. Like not even 15 minutes have passed, and he's like, it does not make a lot of sense to me. So that's the one thing I don't like about him. But other than that, he's fine.
Yeah.
And the kids are important for another reason too. I think they're one of the things that separate Laurie from being like any other final girl. I think the guardian element of Laurie is kind of what makes her unique. But for fucking Lindsay, what drove me nuts about her is Annie was shouting Lindsay like 100 times. And the rooms could not have been more than like 20 feet away from each other. And Lindsay is just like zombified on this TV. And I'm like, oh God.
Well, that's
a real life trait. That drives me nuts.
She was in a guest house though.
Oh, was she?
Because when she went to go do the laundry, you know how like they had to walk outside along all those like stones and whatnot into the backyard? Like that, I think it's like a guest house. They didn't really show the full thing. It was like a shed, but they showed that it had a fridge and it had the washer and dryer, but that wasn't like their main kitchen or anything. Because they showed the main kitchen when Annie was, cooking the popcorn. So I think it was a guest house in the backyard, and the door was slammed shut. So I could see, from that distance with the doors and the outside and whatnot, and the TV blaring, I could see that she didn't hear.
Was the kitchen in the same area as the guest? I know the washer's in the guest house, but was the kitchen in the guest house too before she changed clothes?
No, it was the washer, dryer, fridge, but where she was cooking the popcorn was in the actual house. So I think they were 2 separate things.
Lindsay during the popcorn scene, I think.
No, she was shouting it
No,
when
she
she was
wasn't.
stuck in the laundry room, remember? Because the door slammed shut, and then when she was doing laundry, so then she tried to get out the window, and that's when Lindsay actually came because like the phone rang, so Lindsay picked it up, and it was Paul, I guess, on the phone, and
That's
then
right.
she went to go run outside, and that's when she actually heard her screaming. So
I thought it was during the phone call though, because remember when she's talking to Laurie on the phone, that's when she gets all that stuff on her dress.
that
Was
was
there
when
no
she
Lindsay
was
screaming?
that was when she was cooking popcorn, but that's not when she was screaming Lindsay. She was screaming Lindsay
Interesting.
when she got stuck in the laundry room.
Either way, fucking Lindsay. Well, it's also the cut. It's just like she's like screaming Lindsay, and it just shows her being an asshole on the
She's
couch.
just
Even though she
got her
can't.
head on her hand, like bored out of her mind, just engrossed in this TV.
So selfish. Yeah, but anyway, so
I mean,
yeah.
I'm defending it. Like I could see her not being able to hear that, but I could see where you're coming from. If you thought it was much closer, then yeah, I can be like, yeah, that kid's a brat. She just doesn't want to help. Um, but yeah, I don't think
Other
that
than
was the
that, though, they're
case.
fine.
No, I
Yeah,
agree. Yeah, they
they're
were good.
yeah.
They were pretty believable for sure. And Tommy obviously gets a lot more scenes than Lindsay, but yeah, he's believable too. And poor little kid gets picked on by the bullies, and his pumpkin smashes on the ground.
Yeah.
Like, he's just
It's a bad day.
yeah. Well, the other kid at least didn't get killed by Michael, and he just runs right into him. That was a cool scene.
Yeah.
Michael's
That
so
seems
weird,
interesting
and then
too.
we'll get
Yeah.
to him when we talk about him more. So I think we should
Yeah.
save him for last of the characters, just because there's a lot to dive in there. We'll wrap up some of these other minor characters. The only one other I can think of, I guess, is there's two. There's Sheriff Brackett. Anything to say about Sheriff Brackett? The only thing I really have to add is he was the only one out of the whole movie that I felt like I'm acting like like he's like when he first runs into Laurie and he's like, "How's it going, Laurie?" And then he's like, "Oh, I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare, huh?" And then like just the way he moves his mouth is just very animated, like he's trying hard.
Yeah, well, the character's also like. At first, I thought we were supposed to like this guy because he's the only one that's giving Loomis the time of day.
Right.
But I think the last time we ever see him is like Loomis says, like he's trying to tell Loomis, like, "Hey, I don't. There's no reason to be worried about anything. I'm tired of being out here tonight." And Loomis is still trying to sell him on this. And then he says, "Well, basically, in a nutshell, paraphrasing, he's like, all right, I'll keep looking. Hopefully, nothing happens. But if it does, just remember this is your fault." I'm like, what the fuck? Why is it Loomis's fault? Like, I don't know. I wish I could find the line, but
Which is sad when you think about it, because I'm pretty sure yeah, Annie's his daughter.
yeah.
So he doesn't even know that his daughter's dead, but yeah, he's already like, yeah, I don't think I need to be here. Like, what? That's gotta feel bad. I'm sure we'll address that in the next film.
I can't even
um,
remember if they did address that in the next
I
film.
think they do. I don't know exactly how, but I'm pretty positive they do. But we'll get to that when we get to it. But yeah, I don't have a lot to say about him though. He's a fun character. He's a he's not hurting anything by overacting or anything. He has his moments. I do like that line about the one good scare. But yeah, he's not a major factor by any means. And then the other one I wanted to talk about is that gravekeeper dude, like the grave digger guy, when Loomis goes to talk to him. What's the deal with that story? Like he starts talking about a story and then it just gets interrupted and we never get resolution on it. I'm trying to find the quote about what he says. It's something about like a hacksaw. I have the quotes pulled up here. Great. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, every town has something like this happen. I remember over in Russellville, old Charlie Bowles, about 15 years ago, one night he finished dinner and he excused himself from the table. He went out to the garage and got himself a hacksaw. Then he went back into the house, kissed his wife and his two children goodbye. And then he proceeded to, and then he just gets interrupted by Loomis and that's it. Like, what the hell? That's a tease, man. What the hell? I did like that guy though, but
It would have been nice if they had actually rolled with John Carpenter's idea of making every movie a unique Halloween horror
yes.
tale. And then that ends up being like part 4 or part
That
5.
would have been sweet. I agree wholeheartedly. Like, I'm a
It
big
would have been
Michael
interesting.
Myers fan. It's hard to say whether I regret a lot of those films. Yeah, I mean, we'll get to that when we get to them, but I agree that would have been great. That would
I
have been
found the line, by the
fantastic.
way. Brackett says, "I'll stay with you tonight, Doctor, just on that chance that you're right. And if you are right, damn you for letting him out." I'm like, what
Yeah.
the fuck? So that hurt the character a lot for me. Yeah, he's consistently
Comes off lazy, like he doesn't want to
yeah.
actually protect anybody. Like, oh, you're gonna force me to do my job tonight. All right, damn you.
He's probably the most cookie cutter character in maybe the Gravedigger's a little cookie cutter as well, but man, the sheriff is cookie cutter. And I mean, even Annie's acting is inconsistent. She's fine in the house, and she's fine when she's with uh in the God
The
the
laundry area, whatever.
yeah, she's good there too. She's not good when they're walking home from school like that.
Yeah.
Not
That's when Linda's at her worst too. The
yeah.
totalies. That's when it's like totally overkill.
Yeah, that was rough. Like John Carpenter really should have said cut. Do that again.
Can we take out 50% of the totalies? And
Yeah.
I mean, that's that. I mean, they had, like I said, they had Deborah Hill write it, so I mean, that was supposed to be authentic for the time of how females talk. But I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Other than that, I
it
mean,
kind of yeah.
no, go ahead.
Well, it kind of lends itself to the idea of like, were they trying to do like a little bit of an exploitation film and have like kind of amp up the acting on the high school girls? Because it sounds like there's little pieces of that, and then they kind of and John Carpenter's like, no, I don't want to make that kind of movie, but
Right.
there's still little fingerprints of that throughout the film.
Sure.
There may have been because I mean the whole point of the movie was that John Carpenter had full control. At best, he got suggestions from the producers,
Right.
but that was the deal. You pay me $10,000, I get to do whatever I want.
Right.
So it's hard to say what conversations happen in the background there, but I don't know. What either way though, it detrimental to the movie? Nah, it's fine.
All right. Well, let's
Even the
move.
sheriff is fine. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, even the worst parts of the character wise, they're pretty harmless. I mean, we're nitpicking with a lot of the Linda stuff. It's not like it ruins the movie or anything. Nothing like that at all. We're just kind of pointing out some of the flaws of the characters for sure. Yeah, let's move on to Michael Myers. Or wait, no, we have Laurie Strode still to talk about. With Laurie, I thought she did really well. Interesting story as an aside about Laurie and about, Jamie Lee Curtis playing Laurie. This is her first feature film, and she, like, the first day of shooting, she felt so like she failed horribly. She thought she did so bad. And then she actually got a call from John Carpenter that night, and she like when she got the call, she's like, "Oh gosh, no actors or actresses ever get calls like that." So she thought it was going to be bad news, like she got fired or something, because she really just didn't think she was doing well. And he actually called her to say how great of a job that he thought she was doing. So she kind of cherished that. So I thought that was kind of cool. And it speaks a lot about, John Carpenter as a director. She said that that's the only time that's ever happened her entire career.
So. I believe it. She's definitely one of the better actresses in the movie. Her and Loomis easily.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure.
It.
But yeah, I mean, it's just cool that John Carpenter has that kind of appreciation for his actors and actresses. So it's good to show that. But as far as the job she does, I think she does really good. Honestly, like one thing that like she felt realistic. She felt grounded. Didn't have any of the odd, weird character traits like the totalies or anything. And she's not. For as much as they, the cliches have been done over, like the final girl is the, doesn't sleep around, doesn't date, doesn't smoke pot, doesn't do drugs. It's like, I mean, she smokes pot in the movie with Annie in the car, and then she's not like a little goody two shoes. She just doesn't seem like she seems very shy. Throughout the film, she's shy about going out on a date with Ben Tramer, and she wants Annie to call him back and basically tell him that it was just a joke, fooling around, that she doesn't want to go to the dance. Like, to me, she comes off very much like that girl next door, kind of the bookworm. It's not like she's a goody two shoes, but she's also not, I just thought she did really well. And, the the times when, obviously, as you mentioned before, she's the scream queen, so she takes after her mother from Psycho, Janet Lee Curtis. So, she does really really well. I really have no complaints about trying to think back to anything that bothered me about her character. And I don't really think so. What do you got?
I feel like her character has been kind of misinterpreted by not so much audiences, but other filmmakers. Like I think a lot of people interpret Laurie lived because she was morally superior to the other characters, and maybe she was. But I didn't. I think what I'm only guessing here, but I think what Carpenter was actually trying to do was like, no, she lived because she was cautious. She didn't think she was invincible. She thought she could get in trouble. She locked the doors. Like that is why she lived. The other two were reckless, they were careless, they were young and dumb, and that's really why she kind of made it through the end of the tunnel and they did not. That's where I think that whole wholesome final girl thing comes from is, the prudent one doesn't die. And she kind of, she watched her back. I mean, she was a good two shoes in a way, but not in a bad way though. She was just, she was careful. The other two, I mean, honestly, Andy's kind of a dumbass in this respect. When you smoke pot and then you immediately pull up to your sheriff father, I mean, I don't smoke pot, but I've been around people who do. That smell that lingers for
no shit.
Yeah. Especially in a car with a window up.
I never. Well, the thing is, it's actually quite accurate because if you have been around pot smokers, they never seem to realize that it just lingers around them. Like, I've worked at places where they just go out on their break and smoke pot, and it's like you realize I can just smell that all over you right now. Like, it is not even hard at all. Like, it's very potent. It burns the nostrils. Like, yeah, no, I think it's realistic though. I don't think they quite understand, or maybe they just don't care. But yeah, no, I agree to a point. I mean, the whole idea of the theme of you don't have sex, you don't do like these certain things, you don't die type of thing. I think that was a false narrative. Even John Carpenter's, gone on record in interviews stating that was never his intention. It was never intended that, by having sex you're gonna get killed, or that you shouldn't do this. That was never an intention of his. And the only reason that Laurie did is for the very reasons you said. She was aware. She wasn't vulnerable. She didn't allow herself to be vulnerable in those situations. It's not those specific acts in particular. It's just that, you're vulnerable when you're taking a shower. You're vulnerable when you're... Whereas she wasn't putting herself in a vulnerable situation. And when she did put herself in a vulnerable situation, that's when the heat was on. When she went to the other house and started looking around, that's when shit hit the fan for her. So just in general though, I do trying to think what I was gonna say. I do like her character in a lot of ways, just because she fights back. She's what we got in for future, or the final girls, that kind of theme. Because even there's a lot of themes attached to this movie. If you check out the Wikipedia page, if you check out interviews, or just stuff like documentaries, there was a lot of themes that came out of the film. The whole idea that basically that's one thing just in general. I mean, I guess is as good as place to any to address it, is like the idea that horror movies are there to, like, I don't know, victimize women or whatever. Or I don't know what the terminology is, but I never understood that, because I mean that's why it's called The Final Girl. Like, it's rare that it's a guy that ends up living in these things. It's usually a female that rises up, shows strength, and overcomes the victim. She wins in the end. That's the whole empowering story that's being told, and that is through and throughout all the major slasher franchises, from Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, etc., Scream. I mean, that's what you're getting. That's the whole thing. So I never really understood that. And Laurie is a great depiction of a strong female character. She fights back several times throughout the film. She stabs Michael in the neck with the knitting needle. She stabs him with the the coat hanger. She didn't just like, yeah, she was kind of cowering in the closet in fear. I mean, most people would, but she doesn't just like accept her fate of death. She reaches up, grabs the coat hanger quickly. Like if you look at her facial expression, it just feels like, I love that scene where she's just like that look of determination and anger and fear, and she twists the coat hanger to make, like a little shiv out of it and just stabs him right in the eye. Like, now there is some dumb mistakes she makes, like twice dropping the knife right at Michael's feet. Like, I was noticing that. I'm like, so she stabs him in the neck, she grabs the knife that was left in the couch, and then drops it and, wanders off. She doesn't finish the job. She obviously, that's just the writing of the movie. It's for suspense and all that. You can't just have the heroine kill the monster right away. Obviously, it's building up. So I get it. It's not necessarily her fault, but obviously you do make the character look a little silly when she doesn't make that mistake once, so she makes it twice, where she drops the killer's weapon right at their feet to allow them to pick it back up and keep chasing. But yeah, I did notice that. That was kind of funny. But it did lead to some really cool moments. But what were you saying?
Well, I was going to say that it just kind of makes the final girl thing just makes sense to me. It's, if you look at a horror movie setup and you ask me who's going to survive, it's not going to be the person who's stoned. It's not going to be the person who's naked. And these are just bad situations to be in if there's a killer around.
Sure.
So obviously you're just more vulnerable if you don't have any clothes or weapons or you're drunk. Like, you're just more vulnerable.
Sure.
Why a guy versus a girl? I think I don't know. I think the male response to a lot of these situations is to reciprocate the aggression, and that's just a bad idea. So I think the idea of trying to escape and let the murderer hang himself, which is kind of what usually happens, something like that happens. All the way up to Jason Takes Manhattan. You know how they thwart Jason, they run away until they kind of lure him into a very convenient toxic waste.
Yeah, that happens every day.
Yeah, no, it's just a thing.
Welcome to New York.
Drills, man. You got to do drills. Yes, I just don't know. So I feel like a defensive game is how you beat these things. And that's why I think the whole like morality tale doesn't apply to Halloween, because Laurie had turf advantage. Her eyes were open in a way that Annie's eyes or Linda's eyes were not open, because she was watching two kids. She was on the lookout.
Right.
And she was already tipped off that something was wrong. She already knew something was not right, which Annie and Linda never had that advantage. So it just, at least in Halloween, and arguably in a lot of other movies, but in Halloween especially, the whole final girl Laurie thing just makes sense. It was perfectly set up, in my opinion.
I agree. We do have to talk about a couple other moments, though. Like, one other thing that stood out to me, one of Laurie's decisions. So Michael comes up the stairs, and this is after she's dropped him downstairs near the couch. He comes up the stairs, she hugs the kids and says, "It's all right, I killed him." They freak out because they see him, come up the stairs. And then obviously Michael's walking really slow, which is his thing. He loves to milk the moment, basically. It's definitely his character trait. It's not just for the movie. This is something that's baked into the character, that he loves to toy with his victims. I mean, that's why he takes so long to do what he does. So anyways, he's walking nice and slow, kind of giving chase to them. So what does she do? She takes them immediately into the room that's like no greater than 10 feet from him. And then she's like, okay. And then she says this very loud and audible. "Okay, you hide in the closet, or you hide in there and shut the door." And then she immediately goes into the next room over and then opens the door to like the balcony, and then immediately makes a ton of noise as she gets into the closet. And, like, she takes a good solid minute to get into that closet as loud as she could possibly be, and then close it. It's like, Michael didn't even fall for it for a second, first of all. Like, there's no scene of him checking the outside door or to the balcony thinking that she went out. Like, he immediately goes to that closet because she made so much noise. And then I was just like, I was thinking to myself, so she gets in the closet and then she takes a belt and wraps it around the handles to try and hold it shut. what if he just went after the kids? What's she gonna do at that point? I was like, her main objective was to keep these kids safe. So she's like, okay, you guys go hide in there. I'm gonna go this way and try and lure him away. But she locks herself in the closet. It's like, what if he? Was she gonna like have to undo it? And
in an alternate cut, they could have very easily had a scene where she's hiding in the closet, and instead there's just 5 minutes of screaming from the other room as Michael Myers breaks through the door. And she's just staring in there awkwardly crying. I mean, that could have very easily been the case.
Struggling to get the belt off if she's just hearing the kids be murdered. Like, oh, jeez. And she's like, I wonder if he fell for it. I bet he bought that I went off the balcony. Yeah, I don't know what the plan was there. I just thought that was hilarious. Like, I love that closet scene where he's breaking through. That's such just an awesome scene how that's shot. The lighting and everything's just perfect. But yeah, I just thought that was hilarious. I don't know what her plan was there by having the kids split up. She can't really protect them anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. But I guess if they have to, for the climax of the movie, I almost wonder if they knew that was a problem, but they're like, we got to get Michael Myers through this balcony. We got to get him knocked out of this window. And that's all they could think of to get the door already opened.
Yeah.
Without having to break the glass. I don't know. I feel like maybe there was some set issues there that kind of reformed the script that way. But I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Laurie, good stuff. Jamie Lee Curtis, very, very good. And, she's stayed true to the franchise throughout. She showed up in some other films. And she's not one of those actors or actresses that kind of scoff at, where they came from. She's not like Kevin Bacon, where he just kind of downplays his time in Friday the 13th. He never really shows up for interviews like in the documentaries or anything. She's always been a good sport about that. She goes to the conventions. So good for her. Good for her. Because she doesn't really need to. I mean, obviously she had a full career after that, but yet she's come back and still loves to tell that story. And good for her. Let's move on to Michael Myers. And yeah, I don't even know where to begin here. So we start off with him as a kid, and this is where the movie starts off. And he, for whatever reason, grabs a knife, kills his sister after she's done having sex. And that's an odd scene. Like, how that's one long shot, right? Or they play it off. I think there's one cut in it, but it's they do it when he it looks down to a dark area and you can't really tell it's a cut. It's when he's already getting upstairs or something. I know that there's one cut in there, but they make it pretty seamless. Other than that, it's one long shot and it's perfect, coming in right after the opening credits, zooms in on the house, circles around that house, and then you see, them Judith, his sister, fooling around on the couch or whatever with her boyfriend. So they go upstairs, and that long shot doesn't last more than 2 minutes, and he's already leaving. They go upstairs, and then less than 2 minutes that it takes Michael to get inside, grab the knife, and then he's like, yeah, I gotta run or whatever. It's getting late. It's like, dude, that's less than 2 minutes. I mean, damn. Talk about.
I mean, I can't judge the guy. No, not everyone's perfect.
Hey, I'm not saying I'm fucking the Iron Man here, but I'm just saying, wow, they're just keeping it real, I guess, for that guy. So, anyways, he's taken off, and I love how she's like, "So you'll call me tomorrow?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'll call you tomorrow." It would have been funny if he's just like, "Yeah, right, whatever." So yeah, they have that moment, and this kicks off a trend that I noticed the entire film, is that all of the characters have horrible peripheral vision. Michael is standing in the doorway to the kitchen or wherever it is that he passes by, and he full on looks that way. It's very quick. He does a very quick jerk of his head, but he looks in that direction. He would have seen a little child with a clown, maybe, I don't know. It's just odd because at that point he already had the knife. But there's a lot of that throughout the whole movie where a character you would have think they would have seen him, but they don't. I just thought that was odd. Little nitpicky stuff, obviously.
Yeah, a lot of stuff like that.
I mean, yeah, this isn't expert.
It's the noise too. It's also people are somewhat deaf in this movie to an extent.
Yes, yes. Yeah. Anyways, so continuing on, so Michael goes up, kills her, and then the parents come home, take off the mask, Michael, and then they do the pull away shot, which I think is supposed to like be a creation of like a freeze frame, even though it's not really frozen because you can kind of see the glimmer of the knife change, so it's actually pulling back, and the scene's not really frozen. They're just standing very still. Um, yeah. Anyways, so Michael Myers. So, what are your thoughts on Michael Myers? Because there's a lot to kind of cover with just the way he acts, the way he looks, just his story, everything about it.
I mean, God, I mean, this is obviously my favorite rendition of Michael by far.
Absolutely agreed.
They don't even really cast him as Michael in the credits unless he's unmasked or unless he's outside of the suit. When he's in the suit, he's casted as
The
the
shape.
shape,
Yep.
which is I really feel like this movie's strong point. I think I like the idea that you're not really supposed to know what's going on here. You're not. It's not. I mean, I feel again. I don't think John Carpenter really knew what he wanted, for better or worse. And for better because I think the movie, if he had a vision of what Michael was supposed to be, then you would have lost the mystery. But I don't think he knew what to do because it seems like they want him to be almost like supernatural and how much of a beating he can take and how fast he can move and the things he can know that he shouldn't be able to know,
Right.
and just how Dr. Loomis describes him. But like you have the whole first scene of the movie grounding the fact that he's mentally ill. So it's like I feel like there's a battle going on here of is he mentally ill or is he a supernatural phenomenon of some sort that we just don't understand? But I like him. I like him a lot. I mean, part of me wants to gravitate towards the supernatural phenomenon just because A, I think it's more interesting, and B, the mentally ill thing just doesn't make a lot of sense. I've had the unfortunate experience of being around a lot of mental illness, and that ain't it. That is not a again like soulless evil is just I don't think does the whole mentally ill thing a lot of justice. So if he is mentally ill, he's mentally ill with what? Is it bipolar? Is it schizophrenia? You know, is it some other form of psychosis? His mental illness is a very complex thing, and a PhD psychologist saying he's soulless and evil that just doesn't tell me schizophrenia. So I like the mystery of Michael.
I do. Too,
I like
yeah.
again the cinematography really plays well in this character. One of my favorite scenes is when Laurie is walking through the dark house, and Laurie's shadow is moving on the left side of the screen, and you're not sure if that's Michael or not. But the shadow, yeah, it's very powerful. And there's a lot of little things like that in this movie where the shadows play almost their own character. And that's why it's important that Michael's the shape, is because you don't really know if he's there or not, or who or what he is. So yeah, this is his best showing in my opinion. I can't think of a better one.
No, agreed wholeheartedly. Like I said, they set the bar so high with this film that it's obviously got to go down from here. Not that there's not other high points of the series or anything like that. But yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. This is my favorite Michael. His look is perfect. The mask, the Shatner mask, they spray painted it white. They did just a little, tore the eyebrows off, did a little bit with the hair or whatever. It's just a great look, that with the coveralls and the knife. It's just so simple, but it's so effective. And the idea that this you don't really know why he's doing what. I love it that way. And obviously later in the series, we're not really spoiling anything. They make it into, Laurie Strode is his sister and all of that stuff, and we'll cover that more in depth as we go. But I think you start to take away a bit from that, because I like the idea of why is this guy doing this. I like that it's just random, because I mean throughout the whole film, it feels very happenstance that he even torments who he does. Like the thing that I love so much about this film is like everything feels connected together in some way. Like there's some thread that connects to another. When he kills, they leave something to kind of point to this. Like, for example, in the car that he takes when he's escaping, you see that the there's matches or whatever that say the red rabbit or whatever, the red dressed rabbit,
I
or
remember that. Yeah,
rabbit in red or whatever it is. So that the matches say that, and then when Loomis comes across the dead truck driver or whatever, the tow truck driver, whatever it was, you see those matches laying on the ground. That's how he knows that Michael is responsible for that, because I was, still a lot ways away from Haddonfield. So that's how he's connecting the dots. So it's just that little clue, that little connecting piece. And then throughout the entire film, you see that car like in the background. Like, I have seen this film at least 6-7 times over the years. A lot of them I just watch parts. I don't sit down and watch it like staring at a screen intently looking for the details like I did this time. A lot of other times, I'm just watching it in the side or watching it in the background type of thing. But I noticed so much more like subtleties in this. There's so many times where, for example, and you just don't get this kind of stuff in movies these days. I know I've said that before, but like when Annie's in the laundry room and you see his face in the, in the doorway or in the window in the background, like way in the background, and it's not in focus, it's just blurred. So, but you see him standing there. They don't alert you to it. It's not like they're pointing it out. It's just, it's there. But through cinematography and the way they, set up the shot is, it shows you that he's there, but it's not going out of its way to like, hey, he's over here, guys. He's over here. I think they do that one, high piercing noise that they do sometimes when he shows up. They did that once, but other times he's literally just standing in the background and you may miss him. There's 3 or 4 shots that I barely caught that he was standing there. And I love that kind of stuff. It's just so subtle. And, you see him so many times throughout the film. There's when Laurie first sees him, or when she's in like class and she looks over and he's just staring from across the street. There's when she looks out her window and he's like by the clothes, on the clothesline and all that. And the whole idea that, why is he following these characters? He just, first he follows Tommy, right? So he follows Tommy, and then because Tommy was the one left alone coming out of the school, like he's driving he bumps into one of the bully kids. The bully kid runs off. Then he gets in the car, and then he's like stalking Tommy as Tommy's walking. Why would he go after him? Well, he's alone. He likes to go after people that are by themselves, as most, these kind of characters do. So he's stalking him in the car, slowly driving alongside him in the creepy way, and then eventually he drives on. So then later, Tommy meets up with, and I think I got this right, like the order of how this happens. Then Tommy is seen walking with Laurie, and that's when they go up to the Myers house, and Michael Myers is in the house, and Laurie, drops something off or whatever, and Tommy tells her to get out of there because that's like the old creepy house. But then she says, oh, there's nothing wrong with it or whatever. And you also, one other little detail that I thought was kind of cool is there's like, I guess the Strode family owns a realty, they're realtors or something. They had a sign on their car or something like that, like a Strode family sign, like they have some business. Well, anyways, there's on the old Myers house lawn, there's a Strode family realtors or whatever sign. I don't know what it is. Maybe her dad's running for mayor. I don't know. But either way, there was something relating to the Strodes on that lawn. I thought it was kind of neat. And it's like just all these little connecting threads I thought were kind of cool. But why like Michael even attacks her and the others is because I feel like they're like the first ones that he encounters. Like he's driving by, and then Annie yells out, "Hey, jerk, speed kills," and that's when he like slams on the brakes and just stops there for a good.
I laughed a little at that scene.
Yeah, because it's just odd. It's just odd that she would say that, and it was just a weird, dumb thing. But like the fact that he just slams on his brakes and just sits there, I thought that was so effective. Like it's just creepy. He's all about just like Michael in his very own way is still like a child inside. Like you look at some of the things he does throughout this movie, he likes toying with people and playing pranks on people. It's why he steals the gravestone of Judith Myers and then puts it above, Annie's dead body in the bed, and then leaves all of these things for Laurie to come across. Like he's playing with these people more so than probably any of the other slashers. Because, Jason will hide bodies and stuff or throw a body through a window. But like Michael, his has more of like a childish, like a cruel child charm to it, I guess. Not really charm, but you know what I mean. Like it has that, like he's messing with people. Even when he stabs the knife into Bob and like pins him up against the door in that very impossible fashion, and then he just kind of looks at him and he tilts his head like a dog. Like it's
It's
just,
diabolical in a way that Jason is not.
I mean, Jason's done that stuff, but yeah, like I said, it's just like this almost kind of like wonder and childlike reactions to a lot of the things he's doing and the way he just watches people. Like he doesn't need to take forever. Like when Laurie is running across the street from him and she starts banging on the door, like how long does it take him to walk across that damn street? Like he's enjoying this. He is milking the crap out of it because he feels completely in control, and he likes instilling the fear in others as much as he likes actually getting the kill. Like, or I guess a big one is the prank he pulls on Linda when he puts on he puts on the bed sheet and Bob's glasses and brings the beer in. Like he's fucking with her like full on, and he just stands there not saying a word. Like that is somebody that is absolutely trying to mess with somebody. He could have just walked in there and murdered her. Like he didn't need the disguise. He did that for shits and giggles to entertain himself because that's, the kind of, that's what he is. He's just like, I don't know. It's just odd.
It's the serial killer profile in many ways. It is someone who they want to be in control, and they want to be understood. Like that's why serial killers get caught, is they keep telling people about the shit that they do. And he wants people to know that he killed his sister. That he went a long way out of his way to get that gravestone. That was that was quite the side errand. And that thing's heavy. And he brought it up, into the bedroom. And like
just
again, that was in his trunk for probably
the
the whole movie. What's up?
I just imagine him trying to drag that thing up there, getting like super pissed off.
That was not a quick, It took time. He clearly has a message he wants to get out there. He wants to toy with people, but he wants people to know why he's doing it. So yeah, there's something twisted going on with Michael, but it's still undefined. But I like that. I like that it's undefined.
Yeah, no, the mystery's good.
Great, but not in this movie. In this movie, it's perfect.
No, yeah,
to an extent. There's other that part's perfect. There's other imperfect parts surrounding it that are kind of like satelliting that element, but in of itself, though, that is really good.
Some other good moments with him. I like that he just sits back up. When Laurie stabs him in the eye, and then he's in the background, he sits back up, and then just full on like lurches up. Like it's just just the way the guy that plays him, I think it's Nick Castle that plays him.
Yeah.
Is one of them. There's multiple people that play him, but he's the main one that plays him behind the mask and all that when he's an adult. Just his movements are so perfect in this film. The way he walks, the way he stands up, everything about him is what I associate with Michael Myers. Like some of the later ones change some things, and I just don't think they get it. Like they have like that very slow walk, but I don't. Yeah, I associate the slow walk with Michael Myers, but it's swagger that he has with it. Like there's some times where he's outright like speed walking. Like he's not just like this guy that ominously slowly walks with the knife up against his chest. Like no, that's not how you do it. Like this, like you said, this is the premier Michael Myers. The way he is portrayed in this film is perfect. Every little movement he does to me is what I associate with the character. Trying to think of some other, there's a great shot, when Laurie is leaning up against the door frame when she's still over in Annie's house, and then his mask, fades in from the darkness. That's a very iconic, popular shot. There's a lot of good stuff like that where he's just shot really well. Like I said, when he's in the background, hell, even when Annie and Laurie, I never noticed this, or at least I forgot about it if I did before, but when Annie and Laurie are in the car that whole time, he's following them in the car the entire time, like for a good 30 minutes. And that goes into these characters like are very unaware of their surroundings. Like if I've been on the road before, and if somebody's like following me and takes like the same turns I do for like 3 turns in a row, I'm already like, okay, what the fuck is this? Like,
I won't pass my house if
I know, that's what I'm saying. Like, if it comes to that, like I've been paranoid in that, and then eventually, they'll turn a different way, and it's like, oh, thank God, I thought somebody was following me, because that does happen. That has happened in real life. So, like, how they like just had somebody following them for like 30 minutes, because like This was leading up to, right when she gets in the car, and then they go talk to the sheriff, which he stays behind, and then they get back in and then continue their drive. He eventually passes by, and Loomis just barely misses him, like he's looking the other way, and then he drives in the background, and then he keeps following him all the way until darkness when they get to the house and whatnot. Like, I thought that was crazy because you always see his car right behind him, like 20 feet behind him the whole time, and it's like, I didn't even remember that that was a thing. Like, he's just on these characters all damn day. I just thought that was cool because when I thought Michael, I knew he drove a car before, obviously, but like I didn't, like he stalked him in a car that whole time. Like I forgot that was the case. Like it's just kind of cool to think like he found his targets and that's who he stayed on the entire time. There could have been other things that went on, but like even when he like I said, the connective tissue, when he passes them and she said, hey jerk, speed kills, and he stops, literally the next scene is them, they turn the corner or whatever, and that's when he's hiding behind the hedge and he pops out. Like he did not just like speed off and then leave or whatever. He just went ahead, stopped, got out, and then played tricks on him again. He is messing with them. Like, I don't know, I love that about the character, is that it's mind games for him. It's all about the mind games until he's ready. I just think that's a fascinating character trait that, you have some of that with Jason and stuff, but like Jason's more of an unstoppable killing machine that does, all these creative kills, whereas Michael's much more methodical about it. So
he's also more otherworldly too. Like it's strange. Michael never, I mean, the cops were all like on alert that whole day and not a single person saw or reported Michael Myers. He's strangely good at what he does, and that factors into the mystery. It's not clear why he's so good at this, and just the movement. I don't think that you're right. They never got it right ever again. Like that when he gets up, he does like a perfect 90-degree incline. Like that's not normal. That's not how people move. So it's just like it all fills into the mystery. It factors into the mystery in a way, and I mean, Jason's like a guerrilla warfare fighter. Like he's kind of it's not unnatural. I mean, clearly he's a zombie later on, but I mean, he's definitely like a Vietnam veteran in how he fights.
He is. He's the type that pops out and gets you. Like Michael's not the type that pops out and gets you. He's the one that's like, he'll let you see him like 5 or 6 times. You'll see him in the background watching 5 or 6 times, and then he gets you. Like he gives you all the opportunities in the world to know of his presence, whereas Jason's more stealth mission, and then like you said, as soon as you let your guard down or whatever, when he's finally ready, then he'll pop out and that's it. Like until the final climax, then he'll be a little bit more gung-ho and just endlessly pursue you. But yeah, and then like you said, we were talking about how they never got the movements right. They never got the mask or the look right ever again in the series, and obviously we'll go much more into that in later movies. I know they use the same mask.
Got more right than others.
That is true. They use the same mask in part 2, even though it looks slightly different because it's more worn. Because they didn't know what they had, like you said. I mean, they kept that mask under the producer's bed for like the year or 2 in between movies, so, or however long it was. So yeah, it's not like they knew of these things. They don't go into these things knowing what is the defining trait of this character. It gets, and that's the problem is, they get so many different actors to play these characters because they're all just like stuntmen for the most part. I'm pretty sure Nick Castle was never like this. I think Nick Castle was just like a friend of John Carpenter, and he's like, yeah, sure, I'll play this. Like, it was all so low budget and not like super planned ahead that, I mean, that's the same with the mask. They spray painted a mask that they got at the store that was William Shatner's face. Like, it was poorly created. It's not like they like, okay, we need this wonderful mask created for this character. It was like, okay, what can we do? Let's just spray paint this there. That looks kind of cool and creepy. Yeah. So yeah, because I even remember one of the later films, one of the, like, the director was like, oh yeah, what's Michael's mask? Oh, it's it's a white mask without any characteristics, and that's wrong. That is not Michael's mask. It has plenty of characteristics. It has the very prominent cheeks. It has the very prominent lips. It has the nose. It has the eyebrows still somewhat visible there, and the hair, and like it's not just a expressionless face. No, it's got an expression. So that's one thing that just annoyed me, is them messing up the mask in later films. But other traits about Michael is, in this film he's very vocal. Like, it's odd. Like, he's very grunty. He's just like, if he's not breathing hard, he's very like when he's taking out the closet and stuff, like when he's breaking in, like he's just very grunty. I thought it's just odd. Funny.
A little bit more than usual. I feel like, granted my volume was kind of low, so I didn't hear a lot of the grunts, but the breathing, it doesn't sound like natural breathing. It doesn't sound like a person breathing in a mask. It sounds very coarse.
It's like Darth Vader-ish in a way, yeah.
Which I think, I'm not really sure. I think when Star Wars came out, I want to say this was in production. So I don't know if there was a cross influence there.
Yeah, I don't know. When did start? Let's check when Star Wars.
I want to say it was 77. I could be wrong about that.
Star Wars. Let's see. Let's see when the first movie came out. Okay, 1977 was the first one. Yeah, and this one was filmed in the spring of 78. So this would have been out.
Okay, maybe so.
Yeah, it could have been intentional. I could see that for sure. They make no bones about it. It's obviously homaging other things and taking other things. Just like Friday the 13th admits that it was a complete ripoff of Halloween to begin with. So, it's just, it's not a bad thing that he was grunting and whatnot. And it's just another one of those things where, like, the character didn't really do that in some of the later films. I feel like the problem is with these franchises is the directors get changed all the time. Almost every movie, it's just like all new cast and crew, and it's like it bothers me because even though it's the same like the publishers and whatnot, like the Akkad guy I think was there throughout the entire series, and when he passed away, I'm pretty sure his son took over because his son is the one that's doing the new one, like not directing but publishing. So the Akkads have always been there throughout the entire franchise, and I'm pretty sure they're the ones that funded it to begin with. So maybe they're producers or something, executive producing. I don't know.
Even Wes Craven, though, he was only like, he had a very small hand in the sequels. Like, he was more influential on others. Like, obviously, he didn't play a big role in part 2, but he played a bigger role in part 3.
You talking about John Carpenter?
No, Wes Craven in Nightmare.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's kind of a
franchise.
Theme. Yeah.
The only horror franchise I know, there may be another one, but I doubt it. The only one where I know where the same director and the seat every single movie, and who was the creative force. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Child's Play. Yep. That is the only time.
Which I appreciate, by the way. Like, I love that it stayed consistent, like continuity and everything. They've kept that going, but we'll have obviously get more in depth with that when we get to that series, which I'm excited for. But it's a shame here. It's just, and I think that's why these series often fall apart and you see such lows that they do reach, is because you get all these things are such low budget that each new director and whatnot comes in and they like, oh, I think I know what this character is, even though they probably don't even watch the other films. You get a lot of that where they don't really care. They're just looking to make their movie and make it work how they want it to work, tell their story, which as a director and as a writer, that is, that's their job. But there's a lot of them that don't care about what the fans think. They're just trying to make a film, and then they don't care if it's 100% staying within continuity or capturing the best aspects of the character. A lot of that just gets kind of lost, I guess, which is a shame.
Yeah. It's getting better. We're seeing the reverse happen in modern day horror, where they'll make a movie and it'll just be absolute shit, and then the producers will bring on a real horror director for the sequel. Ouija was a good example of that. They got Mike Flanagan. Mike Flanagan did Oculus. He did Absentia. He also did Hush. If you ever saw that on Netflix, I believe we both reviewed that. Yeah. So Yeah, things are getting better. We also have like good horror directors again. We have James Wan's and all that.
Yeah, yeah.
That's working out better. But I guess my final note on Michael, just as the character,
Sure.
is to quote a much not as good movie, a movie that's aged very badly, a Paranormal Activity. They ask the paranormalist, "What does this thing want?" And he says it wants your wife, basically. But he goes on to say, "This thing is not human. It's not part of our world. You could not begin to understand what this thing wants." It's very Lovecraftian. If you were to get a glimpse into what's really going on with this thing, you would lose your mind. And that's Michael. That is just Michael to me. Or at least it was Michael. It was Michael until Michael turned into all this other shit. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why I love this movie so much.
I agree. Michael Myers to me is the shape. I mean, he should be that. It shouldn't be about hunting down his sister over and over and over as like an endless plot line. It's why these people? Why now after all of this time? Like what is driving this character? What's going on in his head? What drives him to act the way he acts, move the way he moves, the decisions he makes? It's just that's what fascinates me about the character. I don't want to know how the beef or the hamburger's made or whatever that saying is. I just want to just get wrapped in the journey. And I feel like if you get too, I don't know, I just feel like they lose it. But we'll see.
It's
how that
very
goes
hard.
down.
You can delve into that world and bring it to life, but it's not easy. And it takes a very smart visionary to do it. And it rarely works. It almost never works.
Yeah, and I don't think you're gonna get like 9 sequels out of this mystery man that you can never learn anything about. Like you're obviously that's not built to last. That's more of a one, maybe 2 movies you can get away with that, but it's not the franchise that they ended up going with because of fan demand.
Yeah.
But obviously you got to start introducing things. I just I don't want to dive too deep into the pitfalls as we will get to. So we covered Michael. Now, just kind of let's go over any lasting shots or scenes that you really enjoy. Just any other thoughts about the movie in general that you would like to cover, because we covered the characters, we covered the score, the opening scene. Yeah, what do you got?
I mean, one of the strongest points of the movie is the very last scene where it's just going from location to location.
Yes.
Where is Michael? That is so powerful because just the whole phenomenon of Michael aside is that question of, this could still happen. The boogeyman never dies. You know, just because you're safe now, any day, any hour, you could be that 0.01%, and there could be a home intruder, and you can get horribly murdered.
Right.
It's possible, and it does happen, and you're only protected by the law of numbers. That's the message of the movie. But just the idea of, what is Michael? He's gone now. Even if he never comes back, you're gonna have to live with the idea
He's still out there. Yeah.
Yeah. Every time you hear a doorbell for the rest of your life, is it Michael? I know I'm saying this like a broken record, but it factors into the mystery. We can never really know what Michael is. We can never really understand what's going on here. Naturalistic or supernatural. We can never truly find out. And the only chance we had is gone. It left a hilarious imprint in the grass.
Yes, it did. I did appreciate that. I agree that it ends in a perfect fashion, because not only is he gone, but then you hear that breathing. So it's like it ends on the heavy breathing. So it's like he's still out there. And this isn't some imaginary thing like in Friday the 13th. It's like where it leaves it ambiguous whether it's real or not. No, he got up and he left. And I love Loomis's look. Like when he shoots him 6 times and then he goes up and looks for his body, he doesn't even look that shocked that he's gone. Like to him, this is what he's been saying all along. Like he is pure evil and he cannot be stopped. He's got to do everything he can to stop him, but he knows what he's dealing with here is not just some simple man. He's not just a man. So when he goes up and looks, he could have been like, "Oh my gosh, he's gone." how did he escape? Like, no way, I shot him 6 times. He doesn't do that. He actually looks and he's like, yep. He just kind of gives a look of shit. Like, where is he? You know, like he doesn't look that shocked. I
As the
like
journey
that.
continues, it's the battle wages back on.
Yep. Like, exactly. Maybe this is the end of the battle or it's not the end of the war or whatever. But yeah, it's continuing. So I really like that. I agree on the ending and just that whole climactic sequence that lasts for like 20 minutes. All of, it starts when Laurie goes over, finds the bodies, and it pretty much starts there and doesn't really let up. Like, you get a little breath of fresh air each time she puts him down, but then he gets right back up after a few seconds, and then you're back on. Like, it's what's next? What next does she have to do? What next has to happen? So I appreciate that.
And unfortunately, it's I saw Halloween 2 before I saw Halloween 1. Not in full. Well, no, in full. So when I saw the end of Halloween 1 many years later, because I had them all on my mom's bootlegged VHS collection, but
Sure.
I didn't see that ending coming. I think I finally saw and comprehended that ending in full in like 2007. It wasn't that long ago. It was quite some time. So that ending still resonates with me. Like, I'm glad I got to experience at least that part as an adult. I thought
Right.
that was super good. But yeah, that's really the only other scene I wanted to kind of return to, because everything else we kind of redirected to through the characters, like we talked about, like the settings and the shadows, in the house, and we kind of went over that. I don't necessarily have anything else specifically I want to highlight, except for just overall thoughts. You got anything else you want to kind of touch back
Um,
on?
I do think it's funny when Michael, as a kid, is killing his sister. He looks at his hand and he's just like, he stops even focusing on his sister. All of a sudden, he looks over because obviously it's the point of view of the
I
camera,
did think about
but
it.
he's just
Yeah.
like looking at his hand slashing. He's not even seeing if it's connecting at anything. He's just like doing the motion. I thought that was hilarious.
No, that's so funny. Yeah.
Other little like trivia tidbits, it was a female that plays, like, when he goes and reaches to grab the mask off the ground. I think it's an adult that plays because the arm looks very long, and I'm positive it's an adult. I don't know if it's a female that plays him there, or if it's the one where he grabs the knife. It's also interesting, like when he walks up to kill his sister, you notice like if the camera's supposed to be where his eyes are at, which is where the mask is covering, of course, he looks like he's pretty tall, like for that kid. Like, his sister was sitting and he was still above her head. Like, I don't know. I thought that was kind of interesting. I'm trying to think of any other tidbits to mention. I was filmed in Southern California, not actual Haddonfield, Illinois, which does not exist. That is not a real town. There is a Haddonfield, but it's not in Illinois. And it was filmed in Southern California. That's why you can see like palm trees in the background. So they were trying to film it like to make it look like it was, Halloween. But in California, you're not going to get those kind of maple trees with all the leaves changing and all over the ground. And they were filming in spring. So obviously they weren't going to have those leaves. So what they did is I think they painted leaves, or they brought them from somewhere else. I think they painted them. And then what they would do each time is they would like blow them in the wind and put them all over the ground and scatter them on the grass to make it, give the appearance. But then after each shot, like after each scene, they would have to re-pick up all those. So that sucks because they had to keep using them over again. So that must have
Well, the
been.
movie, like the vegetation is super green throughout the movie. It didn't
Yeah.
work. It feels very much like
No,
July in this
I
movie.
know.
Unfortunately, that might be one of my. There's a few flaws with the movie.
Sure.
That's one of them. The acting is one of them. Just the nudity. It's. I'm not even entirely against the idea of nudity in movies. It's just it doesn't make sense to me. That opening scene just doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah, but
I find, well, that brings up another thing. The violence. So we talked about that earlier. We brought it up, but we were gonna save it. The violence of this movie is not like there's no. Is there even? There is some blood. Okay, so it's on like his sister's chest. There's some blood. There might be a little bit of blood smeared later in the movie, and there's some blood on Laurie's arm from when the knife slash. But this is not like a
I believe the
gory
truck.
movie.
outside earlier in the movie.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, the truck driver. The truck driver had blood on him. But this is not like a gory movie. This is not, taking off limbs. This is not watching the knife plunge through skin. And it's not like a Tom Savini thing where you're seeing all these blood and gore effects, which can be cool in their own right when done well, like Tom Savini's known for. But yeah, this is not a gory film. So it's kind of interesting to look back at this film. It's not like, because oftentimes, horror movies, slashers especially, get the bad rap of being like torture porn or gore, overly gory and all that. This isn't really that. This is more about suspense and thriller than anything else.
Which is interesting because, and we'll get to it with part 2, but I feel like they make more of a jump in the sequel.
Yes,
it does get
they
significantly heavier.
They absolutely do, and that's because when part 2 came out, I believe that was after Friday the 13th had come out. Let me check here. So we've got critical blah blah blah.
I want to say it was like the same year.
No, it wasn't the same year. No way. No.
That's Friday the 13th.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the original. I was like,
no.
There's no way.
That would be incredibly ambitious.
Like they banged that out real quick. Let's see. So Halloween 2 came out in 1981, and I believe the first Friday the 13th came out in 1980. I think so. I think 1980.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. So at this point, it was already established to be a little bit more gory. So yes, that I do know, and we'll get to that more when we get to the next film. But I'm positive it does step up the showing more of the violence and gore rather than having it not be in the forefront as much. I'm trying to think. I love just the pacing of the movie. Like, even though I've seen this movie so many times, I didn't feel like really that bored watching it. Like, it moves for an hour and a half film. It's pretty, like, there's always something, I feel like, to keep your interest. There's no real prolonged lull, so to speak, if that makes sense. And I feel like the climax is pretty good. Like, the climax is good enough to where the build-up is worth it in the end. It's not like a 2.5 hour movie where it's just like, oh my gosh. I'm trying to think.
The music and the atmosphere carries you through the parts that are not as strong dramatically.
Sure.
It's just, the cinematography also is so strong. Just a beautiful movie to look at, even if it doesn't look entirely like it should look like an autumn. It's still it doesn't bother me ultimately. It's just visually is so powerful that you're right. I don't feel the lulls like at all.
One other little funny tidbit is when Annie goes up to look behind the hedge because Laurie said she saw something there or whatever, that guy there. She goes up there and then looks back at Laurie, and then Laurie's looking. When she looks back at Annie and you see the hedge again, you can see a little puff of smoke come up because it's John Carpenter smoking a cigarette behind them. So, I remember in like an interview he mentioned that like a little mistake that he wished he could have edited out or reshot it or something.
I'm glad it's in there. I think that's great.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I'm trying to think of anything. Oh, obviously you got Thing from Another World on the TV.
Yeah.
So an homage.
Nice little precursor.
And yeah, John Carpenter doing the remake of that. So that's kind of cool. I think I covered one odd thing, I guess, that I did notice. Another little odd, maybe inconsistency time-wise is, so we see Michael Myers in the mask, right? He's got the mask on. He's standing outside of the school. He runs into the bully. He does all these things. Well, that all happened before, a good half an hour, because Laurie goes home, and then eventually she meets up with Annie later, and that's when they get in the car. So we could probably guess at least an hour happened through all of those events. Well, when they're in the car and they meet up with Sheriff Brackett, there was a break-in at the store, and he's like, yeah, the store got broken into. You really think that alarm was going on for like an hour and a half or whatever? Because Michael stole the mask from that store along with some rope and I don't remember what else, but he stole some things from the store. Maybe the knife and the rope. So he steals all of that stuff from the store. Had that just happened, he wouldn't have already had the mask. So maybe that's a little story inconsistency, or maybe I'm just thinking more time passed than necessary, or maybe they just noticed that stuff was stolen. I don't know.
It goes by fast. Like, yes. I mean, honestly, like, even rewatching it, like I couldn't. The movie's very quick paced, almost to a fault. Like a lot of the exposition you can miss very easily. So I can't comfortably say one way or another,
Sure.
but
Yeah, and I'm not like trying to knock it or anything. It's just something I noticed that somebody can go and analyze to just kind of think about. Let's see. I did notice the cheerleader saying, "We're from Haddonfield, couldn't be prouder. Can't hear us now, we'll yell a little louder." They kept repeating that, like when they're at the
see, I
school.
couldn't hear that. My TV, like it's fucking DVDs as well. I don't have a Blu-ray of this movie. I had to watch it on my 10-year-old DVD, and like the sound is super unbalanced. So it's just like I didn't get any of that shit. Like
The only other thing that I think I wrote down is, Laurie did survive, and as far as we know, Ben Tramer is going to go to the dance with her. So
yeah, that's
I
good.
can't wait. I can't wait to meet Ben Tramer. So I'm glad. Hopefully they live happily ever after.
I'm rooting for them. They're going to be adorable.
I think they're going to be just fine. All right. So that pretty much wraps it up, though. I think we kind of touched at least all the high points and some of the finer points. We probably missed some little tidbits here and there. We didn't cover it all, but, we're
Well,
encroaching two
it's
hours here and covered
it's hard to
quite a
cover it
bit.
all with this movie. I mean, well, yeah, I would argue you can't cover it all just because, God, it's so hard to review or even watch this movie because there's three ways to review it and there's three ways to watch it. You can watch it as a John Carpenter film, that's the only way I can watch it. I can't watch it any other way. I see it through the lens of someone who has seen all the John Carpenter films, and I kind of keep all that in mind, that kind of color, so I see everything. Um, Another way to see it is to see it as a slasher, as sort of like the pioneer, prototypical slasher movie.
Right.
Again, that completely changes how you see the movie. The only real innocent way to see the movie is to see it as a 70s horror film outside of the Carpenter style and the slasher genre. And that's hard to do, but I think that's where a lot of the flaws come in too. I think a lot of the problems with this movie, as few as there are, come from the fact that it fell into a lot of the traps that just 70 horrors films kind of fell into. So it's a hard movie to review, talk about, watch, just because there's so many different layers of how of not the movie itself, but the lens through which you watch it. Like I'm a John Carpenter nut, so I see everything from a Carpenter standpoint. Not, I don't know if that's a good thing. Like good or bad. I can't help it. I don't know if your perspective is a hybrid of any of those three things, but I come from the Carpenter standpoint, so it's a challenge to talk about and analyze. I think because of that, because I can't control how I see it. I don't know where you stand on all that though. Is that your
Yeah.
lens as
No,
well?
I agree. John Carpenter is one of my favorite directors. He's easily top 5, top 3 for me. There's so many of his films that I really, really enjoy. But yeah, so I agree with your assessment. Yeah, I mean, it's got John Carpenter written all over it, his style. I'm just trying to think of anything else I want to add to that. No, I pretty well covered. There was one other, I guess, little tidbit that I feel like we're here, so we might as well address it while we're here. There was some odd stuff about, like, there was theories or people were playing it off like this. The narrative that they spun on it is that Michael is some sort of sexually repressed person, and the reason why he kills his sister is like supposed to be representing sex when he stabs her and penetrates her, and then later on the same thing with the other girls and guys and whatnot. And it's just like I think that's just stupid.
Well, it doesn't explain Bob for one thing,
It just doesn't
but
explain the truck. I mean, it doesn't explain any of it. I just think that's just dumb. I don't. If you want to spin Freddy as like a sexual driven person, that makes sense. There's a lot of that, underlying themes and very much put in front of your face for that character. But when it comes to like Jason and Michael, anybody that like plays that spin on it, I don't see it at all. I really don't.
well, I mean, just that's one of the problems with Michael because Michael is so mysterious. People can project whatever image or thought philosophy onto him that they want, and it's hard to prove them wrong
Sure.
because he's we see it through the eyes of Loomis, and that's super vague. Anytime you have a dude who doesn't talk, you can put any words into his mouth that you want. So that's a good example of, if you want to like take a Freudian approach on Michael Myers, whatever. I think it's a waste of time and it's dumb.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're going to see a lot more of that. We have seen a lot of that. That's unfortunate. Just because he's an easy target because he doesn't talk. And anytime there's violence in women, you can always project some sort of weird, psychology theory onto that. There's just nothing you can do about it. The best you can do is just kind of propose a better theory, which I think we did tonight. I think we have a better idea of what Michael's supposed to be, as opposed to just some sort of sexual fantasy lived out on someone's sister.
Absolutely. And on that note, we'll wrap up a little bit here. So just some final notes before we give our score here. So Halloween was produced on a budget of $300,000. It was released in 1978, as we mentioned, on October 25th. Michael Myers' birthday is October 19th, I believe. It grossed $47 million at the box office in the United States and $23 million internationally for a total of $70 million worldwide. So obviously quite a profit there. That's a pretty damn high profit. So
yeah,
good for them. And, low budget horror can do really, really well. I mean, there's other really highly successful franchises that started out like that. And I think the biggest problem with them is they often got bigger and bigger in budget, and then those, the turnaround was a lot less. So then it just started losing its luster, so to speak, and they just kind of made some bad decisions. Anyways, critically, it was actually it received pretty well. It was received pretty well critically, especially for a horror movie. One of notes, Roger Ebert, who usually hates on horror movies, gave high praise to Halloween and even listed it as one of his top 10 films of 1978. So that's kind of pretty cool for that. Rotten Tomatoes, Metacritic both have high scores. Rotten Tomatoes, it's 93% with an average rating of 8.5 out of 10. And Metacritic, I believe it has a 78 out of 100 based on 11 critics. Obviously, this is all in retrospect, so take it for what it is. But yes, all around critically, it is done pretty well, and fan-wise, it's usually highly regarded. So that pretty much wraps it up for Halloween. We'll give our scores here, and just before we do that, I think you've got everything good on your end. Anything more to add?
Yeah, no, I've pretty much covered everything that I could think of at least.
Okay. I will throw my score out first then. We're going to be doing letter grades, so your B's, B minuses, B pluses, so on and so forth. I'm going to give it an A. Could it be better? Sure. It's not a masterpiece, but overall, this is one of the best, or at least one of my favorites, so I have to give it an A. What would you give it?
A minus is better than A, right?
No. Okay. It goes A minus, A, and then A plus.
Okay. Then I'll say A minus then. I'm trying to think, like, the negative sign is throwing me off mentally. I'll give it an A minus. Honestly, in my brain, it's only, I don't really think of A as a letter, to be honest with you. I mean, I usually go straight to A minus to B plus. That's usually how it goes.
Yeah. So it's like, it goes B minus, B plus, A minus. Like, you go plus to minus and then normal. Does that make sense?
Okay, I didn't factor in for the normal in my brain.
A minus is, like, just for an example, A minus is usually like 90 to 94. A regular A would be 95, 96, or 97. And then A plus would be 98, 99, 100, that type of thing.
See, I just did divisibles of 5. I just did 95 to 100 as A plus. So
either way.
But either or, I'll say A minus. I think that's a good score.
Sure.
It's not part of the top John Carpenter. Like, this is not as good as The Thing. I like this movie a lot, but The Thing is just in its own league. But it's clearly better than other Carpenter. I like it better than The Fog. I like it just a little bit better than Escape from New York. What's that?
I've not seen The Fog. So when we get around to reviewing that, I'll be interested to see.
I don't think there's any rush. I like The Fog, but it's definitely don't, throw your wallets out just yet. I would say that's definitely its own review for sure. But I would say it's on par with a lot of, very standard, good, well-known John Carpenter films. I actually think it's on par with Prince of Darkness, but I don't know. A lot of people may disagree with me on that. I think Prince of Darkness is very underrated. I would say these are about on par. And just slashers in general, I cannot think of a slasher I like better than Halloween. That doesn't mean it's not out there. I just cannot think of it. I've always been partial to the Halloween, not the franchise, but the Halloween film.
Right,
the compared to the original Friday the 13th.
No, I agree. Halloween, the first one, is probably, in terms of a slasher movie, to me, that's probably the top of the pyramid. Now, obviously, as we go through this, we can see what comes close, what maybe, close to on par, whatever. Maybe something does surpass it that we're not thinking. But to me, yes, this is the one that I usually regard as the highest in my opinion. So
yeah, so I mean, it's definitely. To be honest with you, like just most of the movies, like slasher wise, I don't rewatch a lot. I really enjoyed rewatching this one. Will I rewatch it again? I mean, I'm at a point where I don't really have time to rewatch movies anymore. If I've already seen it, then it kind of gets put in my shelf. I don't touch it for probably multiple years, but you should. I mean, I hope you've seen the movie if you heard this review. Like, if you didn't, that's just an awful shame. But if you still haven't seen the movie, go fucking watch the movie. It's really good.
It is really good. And on that note, stay tuned because what's coming up next is Halloween 2. And like I said, we're going to go in order until we get all the way up to the new one. And then once we're done with this franchise, we will move on to another franchise. So if you like the video or the audio, whatever, then make sure you leave a like, subscribe, whatever, leave a comment. I mean, honestly, out of all those things you can do, I would love to know what your guys' opinion of Halloween is. So please tell us what you would rate it down in the comments below. I would love to know what you guys think on any of our discussion points. Please let us know about Halloween, and we'll look forward to Halloween 2, see where the series goes. Some of those, I don't even know when the last time I've seen Halloween 2 is. It's been years and years. So anyways, on that note, take care, guys. See you guys later.
Yeah, take care, everybody.
The game is in the afternoon. I have to get my hair done at 5, and the dance is at 8. I'll be totally wiped out.
I don't think you have enough to do tomorrow.